So, Mark, I was thinking about what you said in our sermon about that statistic about the fentanyl deaths. We got 600 plus a day.
300.
300 plus a day.
Yep.
And I couldn't help but think that it relates in some way to what Paul was writing in the second letter to Timothy here, which I wrote up on the board for today's lesson, which, apologies, Bill Buckley turned us down this week, so we can't have him. For I am already being poured out as a drink offering, and the time of my departure has come. I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, I have kept the faith. Henceforth there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day, and not only to me, but also to all who have loved his appearing. At my first defense no one came to stand by me, but all deserted me. May it not be charged against them. So I've read on a little farther, but I wanted us to talk about and think about that idea of fighting the good fight, fighting the fight, finishing the race, and for us as Christians, finishing the race well. And I think we see a really stark contrast between this example of Christian hope and the deaths of despair we see all around us. And I think there's a real opportunity for Christian witness there.
Well, absolutely it is. Which is so tied, isn't it, to being the shining city on the hill, right? That we're light in darkness. And you think about all that stuff coming across the border. And it's holding, if we don't seal this thing, it's just going to multiply exponentially, right? And you're talking hundreds of thousands of kids. So 300 a day, that's 9,000 a month, right? 9,000 lives being lost a month. So there's 100,000 people in a year that are going to die at the current rate.
Right.
I think one of the things that gets utterly lost in much of current Christian diatribe across these social issues is how deep this idea of euthanasia goes in so many ways, and that how we live isn't just how we influence the culture. Perhaps more importantly is how we die influences the culture, right? We have to accept that our bodies are frail, they're mortal, we're all going to age, right? And it's part of our ability to receive charity that teaches the next generation how they are to live, right? One of the people in our calendar saints is William Law, who wrote 18th century divine, who wrote a incredibly influential book, Holy Living and Holy Dying was the name of the book. And I think that's so true, holy dying. When I think of that, I think one of the greatest examples of that, Roger's maternal grandparents, always just stand out to me. They bring a tear to my eye about the whole way they lived their life was planned out. From the moment they retired to when they went to their apartment, to assisted living, to the nursing home. It was all this incredible Christian responsibility about holy living, but holy dying. And it's just influenced me all these years. Remember, and when they were living in the apartment, I just started at 8 Sharon's. I was 18 years old. And now I'm 58. That's like 5 years. Right? So,
Yeah.
40 years ago, right? And I think we've lost sight of that, right? And so this whole, that's why suicide is such a horrific thing, because it never stops touching all generations.
No.
Because it's what we're saying by succumbing to that is that it's the best way out. Or this, if it's a, let me say, if it's a solution for Grandpa, it must be a solution for me.
Right. And it becomes institutionalized that way.
Absolutely.
I think, to what you're saying, the thing that gets missed for so many modern Christians now is that we forget that our deaths are a witness just as much as our lives should be a witness. And that has considerations with assisted suicide, deaths of despair, and also even just like you were saying, the arrangements that we make at end of life and considering burial versus cremation, it all is tied in, even if they're not consciously decided, into what our worldview is about having a psychosomatic unity and preserving the dignity of the body after our death versus liberating our soul from our bodies. And I think that also, perhaps unintentionally, relates back to what you were preaching on today. And speaking of the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And you mentioned how we misconstrue the idea of liberty, and we take that idea, this misconstrued idea of liberty, we confuse it with license.
Yes.
That liberty, when we think of liberty, we think it's freedom to do whatever the heck we want. But liberty, true Christian liberty as it's understood, is the freedom of the will to choose the right over the wrong. So we think of, what we're really thinking of in our minds is license, and we apply that to death as well. And so now we say, I deserve to go out on my own terms, and that means I'm not going to waste away in a nursing home. I'm going to get shot up with a bunch of chemicals and relieve the burden on my family or relieve my own suffering. And it's really a domino effect once you get rid of that idea upstream of the true notion of liberty.
There's bizarre narcissism to that.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, you know, I'm hardly being off the charts here, I think. You know, like, listen, when I die, you know, when I want to die on this day, and you'll kill me with these drugs, and I want to be in a hot air balloon, and I want to fly over this, you know, mountain range, and that's what's coming. It's already here, right?
Right.
All of that stuff. I mean, it's a tough issue pastorally. I've learned it's another one of those things where you kind of have to hold your ground. The church, in all of her history, in her liturgies, she never anticipated anything but burying a human body.
Right.
It's only been in the last 50 years that now there's been people who died through circumstance because of fire and different things, but to deliberately move away from we return to dust, from dust we came, but returning to dust in the natural state is a real theological question, and it'll tick off a lot of people. You know, and I've had it in my family, and you know, my father was cremated, right? And so these are real issues that we no longer even take as with theological substance, right? They're decided.
Yeah, they're just settled because of the things that are done. Even ask the question to you all, do these things really come up in any serious manner in daily or family conversation? No, of course not. And it's really just a number of all these other issues that just wash over us with the tidal wave of culture.
Yeah, I mean, you know, in my 30 years of priesthood, the evolution of what I did in my first 5 to 7 years of ministry as a priest with the dying is so utterly different than what it has been for the last 10 years. It's, I mean, you know, for that generation, you'd always be invited as a clergyman to come visit the dying, either anoint them, pray with the family, counsel the dying. You might hear their confession, you know, and then they would be, you would do a burial, a committal, and even at, you know, at Apostles the last 5 or 6 years I was, you know, bishop, was so many people, all those things were decided before the family. They just show up and say, you know, we want to have a memorial from, you know, Aunt Jenny, right? And all the other stuff doesn't matter to them. It simply does not matter to them. And then instead they would argue about what secular songs they wanted me to play over the PA system, you know, like. Yeah. And it's amazing. It's an amazing transformation that's happened. And of course, most clergy, the overwhelming amount of clergy acquiesce to all that stuff, right? And as Bob knows, I wouldn't, and they would just get mad and stop giving us money.
And so it goes. That doesn't mean you don't handle it with sensitivity,
No.
but there are clear answers to what the church clearly supports and teaches on these issues. And when it comes to cremation versus burial, it's the Christian church throughout the centuries, as like you said, has clearly assumed they're going to have burial versus cremation. And then I'll pose to you, the devil's advocate to that question is, well, do you think that Christ cannot resurrect you if you've been cremated to a pile of dust?
Well, of course he can. I mean, right? God created Adam from the dirt. So, but that's to miss the point, isn't it?
Exactly.
But that's what your opponent would come at you with. It's about, we honor the body because Christ dwells in the body and we're made in the image of God. So they're missing the whole Judeo-Christian point of what the dignity of the human person is. And so we do it because we honor Christ and the triune God by following this course of events. From him we came, to him we shall return. So you say when you give us ashes at Ash Wednesday, right? From dust you came, and to dust you shall return.
Yeah.
So we do that according to God's rules, not our rules. But it's just going to get far worse as far as the battle in your generation of clergy and beyond.
Oh, absolutely.
In these issues.
And this isn't, I don't mean to send us down a rabbit trail here, but it's all, I think, tied together with the slippage into Gnosticism that has snuck in the back door.
Why don't you define that word?
Yeah,
So Gnosticism is, and here, fill in the gaps for me because I'm no expert on it, but Gnosticism is the idea that it's really not related to deism or theism, but it's really a pagan notion of there's just this knowledge out here. And I think the point that I'm getting at is that the Gnostics believed that your soul was trapped within your body and that your soul and your body are not intrinsically linked, but that really over the course of your life and through your death, you are liberated from your body, and in fact, you want to become the master over it. And I'm sure that's a incomplete definition, but I think that's the focus of what we're talking about here.
That's what John's battling massively in his prologue to John's to his gospel. Right, Gnosticism is dominating the last decade of the first century.
And so I'll finish my thought there. Yeah. So when I think of and when others speak of Gnosticism in our culture, on the one hand, you've got the cremation aspect, which I think people don't consciously realize in going out there and saying, oh, well, I'm a Gnostic, so I'm going to cremate my body. Obviously, it's more out of a utilitarianism or a convenience. But that's rooted in the idea that you've incinerated your body and now your soul has been liberated and it floats up with the smoke from the ashes. And then the modern day transgender movement, where your personal interior identity is separate from what your biology dictates, and you are now inside at war with your biology and declaring yourself, your inner identity, to be victorious over what your body says. And then the natural conclusion to that is self-mutilation. So there's nothing new under the sun.
No, there really isn't. And I think of the cremation issue is very pastorally sensitive.
Yeah.
And as a clergyman and pastor, you've got to approach it in an early relationship, which happens at with less frequency than when I was a young priest, and for you, right, there was still a norm. So now it's the exception. And so unless you've developed a pastoral relationship with these people through your role as rector, you're not going to really have opportunities to have discussion. You're just going to inherit these cases where, again, they're all fait accomplis. And then they want you, in essence, to give the church's stamp of approval to this rationale, right? And that's where the Gnosticism comes. Gnosis really means a secret knowledge, you see. We know better than the church. We know better than the Judeo-Christian tradition.
Well, let me ask, though, then, is it okay as a Christian to view the body as a vessel?
Of course it's a vessel.
Right, well, that's what I mean, so
Yeah, yeah.
it depends then as to how that vessel is viewed, to what extent is it viewed? Is it like, because we're told when we go through that veil, we'll get a new body. So
Yeah.
so the thing is like the Gnostics, they view it as a vessel, yet it's a vessel that's not, it's not, there's no link. So I mean you could get really technical as to
Yeah.
that relationship between the vessel and the soul.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You're right, it could be a long rabbit hole there too.
You could be going.
Yeah, and in fairness, the Roman Church in particular, right, since it was after Vatican II, they said there's nothing sinful about cremation,
Right.
but that the church prefers the burying of the body. So it doesn't tie it to salvation, but it ties it to witness. It's a form of evangelization. So even in death, we can evangelize. Right, that's the point of the church, more than like, well, because Uncle John was cremated, he's a rotten guy, he's going to burn in hell. That's not what we're saying. That's not what we're saying at all. But it is a domino that starts knocking stuff over to other things that would be sinful.
The bigger issue is that no one's going to heaven anymore, or you wouldn't know it from their death. So we replaced funerals with wakes.
Yes.
And, well, some people didn't.
You're right.
In my lifetime, Protestants didn't have wakes. Now they do, and then that's what people go to, and they don't. So you never get the sermon. You just get the, oh, isn't he nice, man?
Oh yeah, everybody's in heaven.
You know, everyone was, and so it's not a Christian, or I'm not judging anyone, but
Right.
it's not necessarily a Christian
Oh, it's not. No, you're right.
thing at all, and so you could be cremated and have a funeral.
Right.
But that's just not.
Well, you know,
Tradition is overweighing,
you know this from being an evangelical pastor, and with we share lots of friends, and their parents have died, and we've had some tragedy with friends, and when either you or I show up in those pagan settings, awakes, they expect us somehow to give like God approval, right?
Yeah.
That's happened to you dozens of times. Roger's here. Roger will tell us that the Bible tells us everything we've done just perfectly well, right? And it's tough, right? They don't. But it is a chance subtly to share the truth with them without damaging their relationship anymore. It's a tremendous challenge. Tremendous challenge.
Yeah, it can't be overstated.
No, it really can't. And it goes back to, again, these words we use in nomenclature or phrases, right? There's a culture of life, there's a culture of death, right? A culture of life is holistic. It's holistic. We don't pray these words just for the sake of it, from conception to natural death, because that's the culture of life, right? Just as the church is, as I was saying, custodians today of the truth, we're custodians of our bodies, we're custodians of our pilgrim's journey, right? And God will judge us that. Is it a matter of salvation? No, but this is where those of us on the Protestant spectrum forget that there's a reward in heaven.
Yeah.
Right. Just because you're saved doesn't mean you get lots of reward. You're going to be way back in the beatific vision, right? And so you're missing the point of why we want to witness the truth. And this is something that's really, I've had to really wrestle with this. Once I get I'm 5 years no Parkinson's diagnosis, right? Nothing good's coming my way physically, right? I mean, I've had significant regression in my physical abilities in the last 9 months, right? And so how do you live your life with Parkinson's or any other of these neurological diseases is going to be as effective as all the babble I've yacked at on the pulpit for 30 years, right? If I just act like a miserable cuss for the last whatever amount of years of my life, it can literally negate everything I've shared.
Yeah.
Right? Because people are going to go, wow, that's nice. He told us all about joy and, the Lord is supreme. And then he acted like a total miserable jerk.
Yeah.
And died a miserable death. That's not good.
And in some cases, that's unavoidable, like dementia, you're not in control of that.
Right, exactly.
But then-
That's going to be my argument.
But modern,
Yeah.
but modern medicine has made it more challenging. Before you got sick and you died,
Much so.
now we have all these remedies, and then somehow you gotta wrangle out what the life of faith is. How long do you extend it, under what circumstances, you know? Is there a right time to say that's enough?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Which is very challenging.
We had a parishioner, I'll even run named, and this is about 15 years ago. Her mother was in her 90s. And she's like maybe 70 at the time, 65, I can't remember. We're outside of the ICU, and we come out, and the mother was going to die within, I forget what it was. She died sometime that day. We come out of the ICU, and she leans against the wall. She just goes down in the fetal position in the hallway. And she's like, Father Galloway, why? Why would God do this to my mother? And I literally said to her, I go, because she's 96. And she's old. You know, and I'm not trying to be coarse or funny here. I mean, it's that simple.
Yeah.
Right? We all are going to die. And like, as a believer, you can't understand why your 96-year-old mother's just going to wear out. But there it is.
Well, that's always been a sign that I think when a Christian, at a Christian funeral, we celebrate when we see, and so you've kind of missed the point of their death should be celebrated. If they were, I mean, we should be jealous.
Yep.
Because they're going to a place that's like beyond, like,
It's a beautiful thing.
yeah, right. And so, like you say, for a person, well, I mean, we as Paul says, we grieve, but we rejoice.
Not in like riding the John Deere tractor in the sky sort of thing, but in a much more.
I was getting
meaningful
here,
way.
Roger, when we sing "Pass Me Not, O Gentle Savior." Roger's grandmother Lucille was living with Sharon and I. They were going to stay for 5 months before they went to Florida. Then she got sick, and then she was in Wesley Hospital for a few days and died. But Roger sang at her funeral, and he sang a medley. But you sang. I tear up thinking about it right now. But when you sang "Pass Me Not, O Gentle Savior," and and Lucille wasn't really that old. She was about 70, I think.
72.
Yeah, and we're victorious. The great psalms we say during Easter week. We're not waiting to die. We're waiting to live.
I think the ones that are sad are the ones that when you're sad is because for the soul that you're not sure about. That's where you're troubled.
Right.
But I mean, when you know that person's lived a lively faith, you rejoice.
Absolutely.
Because they've just made it to where we all want to be.
I have to say, I don't know how many funerals I've done. Let's say 500, right? There hasn't been 10% of them like that. Not even close. Not even close, right? At the wake, I think I asked this question in a sermon recently. Have you ever been to a wake where everybody's not going to heaven? Ever? That just can't even statistically be true. Never mind spiritually, right? It's just. But I remember Alice Grimmiger's funeral. She died almost 100. She was 105. It
Wow.
was just awesome. It was just when we sang For All the Saints, and the place was just rocking because there was no doubt where Alice Grimmiger was. And the last time I went to see her, she's like, "I'm ready to go." She goes, "I'm 100," and just reeked faith. And there wasn't anything sad about that. I missed her, but it was just this triumphant victory. And that's witnessing. That's the Pilgrim's Way. Yeah.
There's no
finishing the
witness
race.
in accelerating your death because you're suffering.
Right.
And there's no witness on the other side of by torturing people that should be dying and you won't let them because you got other issues. Our medicine has made it harder.
Absolutely.
On both ends of that.
I think that brings up another counterpoint that I wanted to ask is, how do we handle those situations where just by circumstance, and kind of answers the question, you have medically induced death. I have an answer in mind, but I'm interested to hear what you have to say about that. Like, if someone is in hospice and on opioids, chances are the opioids are going to kill the person before the prognosis does.
Yep.
But you're treating them for pain, you're not accelerating their...
Exactly.
You're not intentionally accelerating.
So Roger beat you to the punch.
Yeah, but he's absolutely right. And that's that fine line where, as pastors, I'm not overly confident that the next generation of pastors in this country are going to be able to delineate that type of moral theology.
No.
Because I don't think they'll be trained properly in classic moral theology, and I think they'll just be afraid to be within the great tradition on these issues. Yeah. It's,
with the doctrine of double effect, where you're treating the pain in order to first do no harm, and then if death is a result of that, it was still the greater good to relieve this person of the pain versus just letting them sit there and suffer.
Well, the death was inevitable.
Right.
You're
Right. At that
alleviating
point.
the pain. You only have a small...
Right.
yeah, that's why, every Christian should have a living will. Morally imperative, because if not, you're going to leave the decision to somebody else who may not wouldn't make the decision you would have made, or they may make immoral decisions about it, right?
Or you're making them make a decision that you should have made yourself.
Exactly, which is the modus operandum of most people, right? To avoid anything difficult. But yeah, the ones that I've had 2 or 3 cases where feeding tubes, right? So it can be a very fine line, and you got to have some acumen around this stuff theologically, or you can really give bad information or bad advice. But yeah, if somebody's at a state of especially mentally impaired, or if they're in a coma, for instance, and they have no chance of, their brain activity has ceased, there's no moral imperative to feed them, right? You keep them comfortable, right? But it's not immoral to let them die, right? The fact that there wasn't modern technology, they would die.
Right.
And I think that's what I retreat to. If we didn't have modern machines that could keep you alive, what would nature do? And it seems to me,
God, not medicine.
yeah, that seems to me to be at least my training, Thomistically, and that's where I would go in these directions, right? But I've had families absolutely insist on shoving the thing down grandma's throat, and then they spend weeks or months just in this vegetative state, no quality of life. It costs taxpayers, which is a moral issue, hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? So it's
Well, lots of times it was against grandma's wishes.
absolutely.
They just decided for whatever reason.
Oh yeah, I've seen them avoid wills, at funerals, avoid burial requests, all of it, And it's not up to us. We don't have the recourse as clergy to tell them, right? It's up to the family. Yeah. Things can be very complicated, can't they?
They sure can.
Yeah. It's it's no secret. I think with those who know me, even with families, you always err to the truth. Always err to the truth. I mean, it doesn't matter if they like you, right? And so often in funerals, you bury people who don't go to church anyway, right? So if you're erring to the truth, at least they're hearing the truth. And it might be a seed that hits some fertile ground somewhere.
Yeah.
But if you just acquiesce to the Gnostic pagan view, God's going to spank you and me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he's not going to ask if people liked us.
No, they're not. Plus he's going to go, I already know the answer, Galloway.
Yeah. You can just be quiet.
You're going to go, Roger was way funnier than you.
But I'm reminded, let's finish in a couple minutes here, of that. So Dr. Peter Kraft from Boston College did that interview the other day, and he had this wonderful quote where he said, dying really stinks, but death is a victory.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Death is a beautiful thing, because Christ conquered death and turned it into a victory.
Yeah,
It doesn't mean
he had
dying
such a smile
stinks.
on his face when
Yeah.
he was saying that. Creek's 85 years
He's an
old.
85-year-old man,
Yeah.
a professor at Boston College.
they were asking about, the aging process, and he's like, well, you get older, dying is no fun, but the other side's glorious.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
And that's the image of fighting the good fight and finishing the race. I think that's important for us to keep in mind. And I think also important to keep in mind, so we go into All Saints Sunday next weekend, and we're going to be triumphantly singing and celebrating that, and all of those loved ones who went before us celebrate with us each and every Sunday.
And we've had, as small as our group is, we've had all this opportunity to be there for each other, right? So Roger's mother is not in great health. His father-in-law is on a short road, right? We need each other. We need to constantly be getting buoyed up, reminded by each other of God's presence, His truth, His promises, because it's like faith. It's all theoretical, so you have to put it into action, right?
Yeah.
And that's how it is. It doesn't matter how old you are. When your parents die, it's tremendously difficult. And Doug's been through 2, right, in a year. So it doesn't matter if we're 60 years old. There's nothing like it, And like, I don't know, I think you're power of attorney too, right?
What's that?
You power of attorney?
No.
No. Now I'm power of attorney, and family members falls to you to be that person in those crunch times, and it's tough. You only can pray yourself through that, because there's always that other voice going, "Don't do that," don't do that. And but so it is. That's what we're called to be. Salt.
Salt and light.
Yep.
Any questions before we finish up?
It's a good conversation. It's a joy to be able to have this conversation. There's not many places you can have that conversation without getting stuff thrown at you.
No, it's so important, but it never comes up. Then we have to be intentional about having these discussions.
And I don't know if Nathan's told you, but Nathan's developed when we're starting a podcast, and we're going to do our first long session this coming Saturday.
It's coming Saturday.
But really be praying for us about that.
Yes.
I think the rector's vision is spot on about how we are going to be able to reach a new generation of believers. Not just a new generation, really any generation, regardless of age. This is where people get their information. And it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of cooperation on your part and support. And but be praying for us, because it's not always easy just to come up with the answers to the most complex questions that the culture is throwing at us. And then you say, well, we're gonna take this on, however frequently we're going to be doing it, and having X amount of podcasts, 50 a year. That's a mammoth task, emotionally, and spiritually.
It's no small task, but we take it on joyfully. So I appreciate those requests for prayer. And so it'll be called the Lively Faith Podcast, and you can expect a formal announcement in the next few weeks. So we'll be doing that first recording session, and the intention really is to have a very similar format to what we're doing with these adult education lessons, as we discussed last month. So this format will supplement our traditional lessons that we do. And like Mark said, we really need your prayers, and we need your support and participation in this endeavor once they start getting published, so that with God's grace and by God's will, we'll be able to reach new hearts and minds with this perspective that we bring from the Anglican tradition and the great tradition of the church more broadly. So we're really excited about it, and hopefully you guys will be too.
Yeah. Yep.
You care to close us in prayer, Mark?
I will be glad to. Let's pray. Father, thank you today for this Sabbath, and for your great mercy, and for calling us and inviting us to journey on the Pilgrim's Way. Be with us in this week ahead. Where we have opportunity, Lord, let us be light in the darkness. Help us to always keep our hope and our eyes and our hearts fixed upon Thee. We pray these things in Christ's name.
Amen.
Amen.